Hello everyone and welcome to Trenton World. This is the Heavy Haul route and we are actually on the K145 run, which is oil tankers from Philadelphia to Trenton. Obviously we can't take it on the full run. But what we are doing is we're going to take it from Cumberland Yard and we're going to run it down the line as far as we can go, where another crew will take over. So as you can see, I'm just setting up the settings on here. Usually we start in the driver's cab, and to reach some of the switches we do have to get out, as you've just seen there. But we are going to set this train up and get all our lights and everything set up, and we'll be on our way. You can see we've got a go via location of Hindman for our first stop. We won't actually be stopping anywhere until the far end, but it does give us locations to pass through as we go on our way. Away we go. Or not. There we go. Just trying to be careful, make sure we don't give the beans too much here. You can see I'm fiddling around with the controls. It's been so long since I played Trenton World, and I do play on an Xbox controller. For me it just works a little bit better. I'd love for rail drive to be implemented. I'd actually go out and buy a rail drive if that was the case, but for now I've got a controller and that's how we're going to do it, doing that in the keyboard. This is our train. See, I've got 3 GP38s, and that's what will be doing the business for us. In this video I'm going to breeze over a few topics, not all related to Trenton World, and related to trains in general. Also not going to run the route in its entirety. Only 2 hours in total, and I don't think you guys want to sit and watch all that, so once we get going along though, we'll be making some cuts, and I'll just try to get the interesting bits, things passing in the other direction, interesting bits, that kind of thing, you know. Anyway, as we're on Trenton World, let's talk about the current state of affairs from my personal view. I say my personal view, you don't necessarily have to agree with them. You probably don't have a view on some of the things, especially if you don't actually have the game yourself. You may still have views, you may not, but as I say, these are just my personal views. I don't expect everyone to agree with them, and that's absolutely fine. But the way I see it, we have got a bit of an issue going on with Dovetail. The latest route has recently been released, which is Canadian National Route, which is brilliant. Getting away from the US, German, UK cycle that we've been in since the game was first released. I know you could argue, well, Canada is not so far away from the main US, but that's neither here nor there. This route was released, and one of the main selling points for it was the extensive yards at Hamilton. Oh, you can almost call it a route in itself. as promotional material. Now, as of me recording this, I'm not sure if they've changed that or not yet, but there were a number of people who weren't very happy with that, and rightly so. Purchase a game, and it actually turns out you can probably use about a third of the yardage that is included on the map. So the Dovetail, in their defence, they have apologised about it. What beyond that they're going to do, I don't know. Me personally, I haven't bought the route because of exactly the fear of something like this. I've brought so many DLCs now, which is completely my own choice. I'll hold my hands up. It's my own choice. I purchased them. But I've got them and then... Actually, we don't get much for our money. £25 a time, and then you can get a slight decrease if you pre-order it. But for me, Dovetail, it's a complete crapshoot what you're going to get for your money. So pre-ordering is just too much of a risk for me for a 10% or 20%, 15%, whatever the percentage of the discount is. It's not worth it for me, and this latest route has justified that, in my opinion. As I say, they have apologised. I don't know if they've changed the advertising on the route and so on and so forth. And I don't know what they're doing about it, whether they're giving a partial refund to the people who have purchased it. That would personally be my opinion. I think goodwill gesture, either a partial refund or something like a 50% off DLC logo for the route, something like that. And I'm pretty sure that they've got logo DLC in the works. Just today, as I record this, they have announced a new loco DLC for the Peninsula route, which was the route prior to this. But this will be the second loco DLC for that route. The first one being the Baby Bullet, and now we have the MP15 DC, I believe it is. 15C, it might just be the C. But either way, so I'm sure that we'll have a Canadian national version of the locos we've already got, if they're relevant, on the way. And I think either a straight partial refund for people who bought the Canadian national route, or, as I say, a 50% discount on the loco DLC, or most of the modelling's done, to be fair. The tracks are there, just a bit of scenery and whatnot that needs sorting. Yeah, go back, fix it. Yeah? Right, just briefly talking about what you're seeing on the screen. You'll see me just jumped out so you got back in. There is still a sound bug. It's really annoying. If you go outside the train, for outside camera view, when you go back in the train, more often than not, it carries the outside sounds into the train, which is rather noisy. And I'm going to have to do a bit of editing so you can actually hear me talking now. Hopefully, post-editing, you've heard me fine up to this point. But the train is exceptionally loud. So yeah, very first route we still have bugs such as that. What, we're nearly 3 years on? One thing I will say for them though, as you can see I'm struggling with power on this. They have done. It's quite a while back now, but they have actually revised the physics on the locos, and that, thumbs up, Dovetail. Do appreciate that. But anyway, yeah, so let's cover the latest DLC from them. But as for, don't want to use the word promises because they didn't promise, but they did advertise before this route come out, before the very first launch of TrainswithNick World. Matt Pedalston, who most of you are probably familiar with, he's one of the senior execs at Dovetail. Got his own, very popular for many years, Twitch and YouTube. That goes back to pre-TrainswithNick World, probably even pre-Dovetail, or he's working on Dovetail, sorry. So yeah, he was asked the question, will there be multiplayer? His response was, there absolutely will be multiplayer. And a lot of people got excited about it. A lot of people went and brought the game multiplayer, myself included. Now I suppose the caveat is he didn't say there will absolutely be multiplayer at game launch, or there will absolutely be multiplayer by point X of the development cycle. Either way, we don't have the multiplayer, and essentially any reference to multiplayer with TrainswithNick World has been deleted, and no one at Dovetail wants to talk about it. Their current community manager is even going so far as to say, we never said there would be multiplayer, we just said that it's something we'd like to have in the game. So obviously there's a mismatch of communication there. There is a video up on YouTube of someone who was basically doing a response to the live announcement of the game launching, and it still has that footage of Matt Pedalston saying absolutely will be multiplayer. They can't delete it, they can't get rid of it. Hopefully they're probably thinking most people won't find it or know about it, but it does exist out there. And yeah, there's that bit of mismatched communication there, where Dovetail are now saying, no, we never said it would have it. But long and short of it is, they've now retracted that, and it doesn't look like we will be getting multiplayer. Now, it may be possible eventually, but I would say certainly in the next 3 years, I'm not holding my breath. Which means if I want multiplayer in a train sim environment, I need to look elsewhere. Which is a bit disappointing, because visually, this game really has got it. There is, quite frankly, no other train sim game that I've come across that can compete with this visually. I can't say whether the physics are accurate. I like the physics, I really enjoy the physics, but I've never driven a train, so I can't say whether that's right or wrong. Real engineers will have to weigh in on that one in the comments. But for me, I really do overall like what I have so far, but that's all I'm going to have. For me, the editor that's been delayed so many times, and I personally feel that the editor's probably there or thereabouts ready for release, I think, personally. Now, Dovetail really tight-lipped on why it's taking so long, but I feel that there's a problem in that Unreal Engine cooks assets into the game, and for any kind of editor, once those assets have cooked or baked, you can't pull them back out, change them, play around with them. So in order to use anything that's already been released to us in any kind of editor, they need to work out that kind of thing with Epic, with the Unreal team, and I think that's where the sticking point is personally, and I think that that may hold up the editor indefinitely, and one day, if that is the case, Dovetail are going to come out and say, sorry guys, you know that editor we've been banging on about, we can never bring it to you. And if that's the case, all I can say to Dovetail is just rip that band-aid off sooner rather than later. Yes, it's going to hurt. Yes, you are going to have some very angry people, but if that is the situation, stringing people out for any longer than necessary is only going to hurt you even more. So, you know, please, Dovetail, if that's what the situation is, like I say, just be honest with us. We can take it. Be honest, say, okay, Unreal Engine had some restrictions you weren't aware of when you started producing this game. There is no way around it unless people go and create everything from scratch when creating a route, which is going to cut a lot of people out and is going to make I don't know, scenario creation isn't going to be as easy as Train Sim 2020 or 19, 18, 17, 11, Railworks before that. That's all on an old engine and is irrelevant when we're talking about Train Sim World. So if we can't do it, just let us know. If there's something else holding it up, if you've done that deal, but there's some other foreseen, again, I know it's not in Dovetail's nature, but please speak up. Just be honest with us. Say, look, we're coming up against this roadblock. This is why it's taking so long. Because you're saying, oh, we'll tell you when we have something to say. After a year, that's getting very old. After 2 years, that's getting very old. Yes, we had the live stream a very long time ago. I think it was September, October maybe, where, possibly even longer than that, where they showed the editor off on some of the things you can do with it, but that's not the public one. That was stuff that we can't get our hands on because it was using uncooked stuff, which we can't have access to because essentially it will give us access to everything, which is against the terms of the EULA. It basically breaks terms with Unreal. So we understand we can't have that. We have to have something else that doesn't allow us full unfettered access to the game engine. So yeah, I think that's pretty much all I can say on that one. But yeah, I'm holding off buying any more DLC personally because they're just not value for money for me. Unless we get a 50% sale and it's something I really want. And it's no secret I love my US trains. Probably why I love this route so much. Even though it's not the most played route I have, which that'd be the Long Island Railroad. It's the most played for me. But yeah, that's where we're at. With that, I'm not going to buy any more. Train Sim World DLC until either Dovetail learns how to communicate with people or it's at a very big discount. One other thing I will cover, actually, I've got lost on a tangent there, is with this new Canadian national route and stuff, someone did start a thread on the Dovetail forums about possible legal action should we report Dovetail because basically false advertising. And when I last looked, it was at 50-50 whether they should be reported to the relevant people, and we should possibly look at the potential repercussions for that. Now, if they were reported, a number of things could happen. One is the advertising agency could say, oh, we don't really think they've broken any rules in this case, we're not doing anything. B, it could be a small slap on the wrist and yep, stop advertising what you're not delivering. Slap on the wrist, basically, go fix it. C is they could get hit with a massive fine which could damage the company severely, so much so that TrainswithNick disappears. And a lot of people, most people will probably agree that's a bad thing. They don't want TrainswithNick to disappear because you wouldn't be here playing it if you didn't enjoy it, and if you didn't enjoy it, it stands to reason you'd want it to continue, you know. However, we know that they will cancel projects with no notice. Look at what happened with Flight Sim World. They were advertising improvements and DLCs right up till the day before they shut up shop on that. And they could do that with Train Sim World, and we could all be left hanging anyway. Alternatively, if legal action was taken against them, it could make them wake up and say, actually, yeah, we've got to up our game, we've got to start thinking properly. Now, I'm sick of the argument of, oh, they're only a small team and everything. No, they're not. Okay, they're not Ubisoft or Electronic Arts or any of your other AAA people, Rockstar. Okay, they're not that big. But they're not a tiny, insignificant company either. Dovetail Games has been going for many years. They're still developing 2 train simulations concurrently. They are still doing Fishing World, whatever it's called. Fishing Sim World? I'm not sure. I'm not a fisherman, and I do apologise to Dovetail for butchering that, but you're not that tiny that all can be forgiven all the time. Something needs to change at Dovetail, where we can't keep getting these half-baked DLCs that have issues, that, oh, they take a long time to develop, so we're only going to give you 20 or 30 mile routes, but we're going to ask you to spend 25 quid at a time, and we'd have to put the price up massively if we doubled the length of the route. And it's like, well, no one's going to pay AAA money for DLC of one route. And you could argue that it's a relatively niche thing, train simming. But my gosh, what they're turning out is not equivalent to what you get on Train Sim. And I know that most of the DLC these days are developed by third-party companies. So hang on, Dovetail are taking their cut of that money, which is fair enough. They're doing a lot of the advertising for it, and so on and so forth. But you've got a third-party company that's pouring a lot of effort in, and it has to be said, those third-party DLCs are generally far and above the quality that we'd get from DLC from Dovetail directly. But they're still managing to keep the price down. And I'm sorry, but the hard work, from what I understand, is already done with Train Sim World. The engine's there. Laying a route, putting the trees in, rivers, roads, scenery, not that hard, especially when you keep reusing the same buildings and so on and so forth. And there's one point on, I think it's Northeast Corridor, where you go through a and there's 3 of the same signal boxes in a row, and it's like, that's nothing like what's there in real life. You just reuse the same asset, plunk, plunk, plunk. Yeah, there's no real excuse I can think of for why the routes are the way they are. You should be to grips with stuff by now that you can turn out routes at a reasonable price point, 25 quid, that are double the length of what you are giving us now. Because, quite frankly, more people would buy them if they felt they were getting value for money, which people don't at the minute. And, sorry, 12 quid for a train? That's very steep in my eyes, and you'll never get me to buy a full price low code DLC. Anyway, I've waffled on about that enough. And what we're coming up nearly half an hour now. And not much happening on the scenery side, so I'm going to cut it here and we'll carry on a bit further and start talking about stuff that's happening in the UK on the real railways. So, on to Northern Rail in the UK. Now, anyone who follows what's happening with trains in the UK, if you live in the UK, as of this Sunday just gone, at the end of February, 1st of March actually, Northern Rail was taken over by the operator of last resort, which is essentially the government are running Northern Rail franchise, just as they run the LNER railway in the UK. Now the LNER, which is the East Coast Main Line, this is actually the second time they've had to take it back into government control. First time it was called East Coast, and this time it's gone under LNER branding. But whatever you call it, twice they've had to step in as previous operator has run into difficulties and essentially can't run it. And that's what's happened to Northern. There's been widely publicised events and problems on Northern Rail for a couple of years now, be it timetable changes, infrastructure that's not been completed on time, which, to be fair, if it's infrastructure, that's not down to Northern Rail, that's down to Network Rail, who are kind of government run, but run as a company and are basically tasked with doing all the infrastructure on the UK rail network. Very convoluted, very silly in my eyes to have infrastructure and train services not linked. I mean, one can't operate without the other, so to have them as two separate things doesn't make sense to me, but hey ho. Anyway, so Northern Rail failed to deliver on promises. They've given their customers a very rough time, and essentially enough's enough. So the operator of last resort, which is the government, has come in and has taken back control. Now, that's not like waving a magic wand, all problems fixed overnight, because it doesn't work like that. It's going to take a long time to fix, and the Transport Secretary, Grant Shapps, has said the same thing. Essentially, there is no quick fix. Now, yeah, we've had new trains introduced by Northern. Here where I live in Lincoln, they've taken over the Pacers, and I haven't ridden on one yet. I'd like to very soon, but I can't see how good or bad they are, so I don't know. That is something I wish to rectify in the near future, and if I get an opportunity I will grab some pictures for you guys, and I'll probably post them on Twitter and elsewhere. That's an aside. But yeah, now these new trains they've introduced, it's become the norm for any rail operator who introduces new trains for there to be teething problems. It's just one of those things. You can do all the testing you like at your testing facilities, whoever the relevant manufacturer is. A lot of them have their own testing plants or rails that they test these trains on, but that's not going to show up because it's not a realistic interpretation of what happens when the trains are in service. So it's natural that you are going to, unfortunately, have teething troubles. It's not a new thing, it's been happening ever since trains were invented. So there is that, and unfortunately we're so squeezed on the UK network that there is no spare capacity, there's no spare trains if there's an issue, well, sorry, we've already cascaded the units that used to run on that rail. They're either scrapped or been sent to another company to relieve pressure there. So yeah, basically you're stuffed. Either cross your fingers and hope these trains work, or don't, but either way you're stuffed. They're not going to work. Deal with it. So that's kind of where you are with new trains. That should have been expected. It wasn't. The deadline for Pacers has already passed anyway. They should have been got rid of because they don't conform to disability legislation, which is fair enough. Then you should be able to use public transport, whatever the case. We've had 10 years to sort this, so it's only right that that should be a thing by now. So yeah, the government have come in and everyone's saying, oh yeah, so that's another failed franchise. And basically the franchise situation has been broken ever since it come in the 90s. It's a bad idea then, it's a bad idea now. My only hope, and there is a lot of people calling for this, is that hopefully the government will see sense and will renationalise it. And I'm not talking about renationalise the whole UK network overnight. What they need to do is, they've got Northern back in house with this operator of last resort, as they're calling it. They've got LNER. Right, integrate the two. And as these franchises are failing, which inevitably most of them will do, let's bring them back into the fold permanently. Even if you have to have one pseudo company running everything, that's fine. Do that. Okay, if you need to have some kind of autonomy from the government to run it, fine, do that. I'm personally of the opinion you cannot have a public service in the private sector, because you've got two opposing forces there. Private sector is about making money for the companies involved, because otherwise why would any private company want to be involved if they're not there to make money? But a public service is not there to make money, it's to provide a service to the public. So, and I don't know, maybe I'm being dense about this, but hopefully you can see my confusion and why it baffles me that it can be seen as a workable thing. There is a big review coming up of franchises. Hopefully that review says, to boil it down, franchises suck, get rid of them. Done. You know, that would be my interpretation of it. Franchises suck, get rid of them. Hey ho, there we go. So yeah, I would say do that. Each time a franchise fails, bring them back into the fold. Allow those franchises that are still working to work, but when they expire, now you're going to have problems at the end, I know, I'll get to that, but as they expire, bring them into the fold. Don't put them back out for tender. Just do that gradually, building it up until the rails are back under government control, where they can be run for the benefit of passengers, not to make money, not to lose money either, because obviously someone's got to pay for these services. So, you know, the money's got to come from somewhere. But the government subsidise the railways anyway. That's the biggest, most stupidest thing about these franchises, is the government is still paying for them. And these companies are making money. They're taking money from the government to run these and to make a profit. Why? That means that, to my uneducated brain, that if that same money was given to the rails that's operated purely by the government, not for profit, then we could be operating a much better service with the same amount of money. You know? Instead of Arriva, who run the Northern franchise before it was lost, they're actually owned by people who run the German railways. So that means we're subsidising the German rail network, because it's the state German operator that's running Northern. And that just makes no sense to me. So anyway, yep, going back. So Northern is back under government control. Long may it continue. Hopefully the government is forward seeing enough. Now, Boris Johnson is a big fan of public transport. So he is a great person to have on board for us. Now, what will happen when he comes up for re-election, if he doesn't get in? If Labour were to win, we know that currently Labour's stance is they will renationalise the network. They're all for it. But who knows when they get a new head honcho, whether that will still be the stance that they stand by, or whether they'll change their mind, flip-flop, be gone. Who knows? Or maybe something will happen. Boris is no longer in charge because, you know, it's Conservatives, that's what they do. Like, oh, this person's no longer in charge, so we'll put a new person in. New, unelected person. Now, to be fair, Boris is elected. We've had an election, he won, so Boris has been chosen by the people. Theresa May wasn't. Cameron was, but as soon as things got tough, he said one thing and did the other. He walked when he said, no, no matter what happens, I'll stay the course, I will do what people want. What he really meant was, I'll do what people want as long as the people agree with me. But hey ho, he's gone. Not a lot to say about that, so we move on. So yeah, things looking a little bit better for UK rail transport. Whether they'll keep going, High Speed 2 has pretty much been green lighted. They've done a review and said, for whatever reason, look, we need to keep going, we've gone too far now. Cancelling it will be colossally bad. We've chucked so much money at it, and in my opinion, continuing would not be chucking good money after bad, or bad money after good, whatever way around it is. That wouldn't be the case, because I believe HS2 is needed. And it's not to bring power out of London and give it to the northern cities and all that crap. It's not about faster trains. It's about ordinary, everyday people who rely on those trains to get around. Anyone who goes on the East Coast Main Line, Midland Main Line, heck, even at some points the East Coast Main Line, they'll all tell you that overcrowding is a massive issue. And one of the biggest barriers we have to overcrowding is the fact that we can't squeeze any more trains down these lines. It just cannot happen. we're essentially running on a Victorian-made network that's had improvements, granted, but the capacity to run the number of trains, the number of seats we need, just isn't there on the existing network. We need this new line. And if we're going to build a brand new line, then surely it makes sense to build it to the latest standards, to the best that we can, which is what High Speed 2 will be. So the benefit is not faster travel from Birmingham to London. That's a side product, that's a bonus of the rail travel. The main benefit is actually being able to transport more people from one place to another. And if we get more people travelling on High Speed 2, yeah, that's not going to serve everywhere, but it means that people going from Birmingham are going to ride on High Speed 2. That means there's that one person that jumps on HS2 is no longer riding on the West Coast Main Line to get there, which means that's one more seat available. And yes, I may be oversimplifying things, but that's what it boils down to. So that's why I'm a big fan of High Speed 2. Yes, there's many other worthy rail projects out there, but no one has given me a convincing argument why scrapping HS2 would be a good thing and what they would do instead to ease those capacity issues that we're currently facing. And yeah, you may be able to squeeze a bit here, a bit there, but rail travel is growing. So by the time you've implemented those improvements that would probably help with today's numbers, you're already dealing with bigger numbers by the time you finish the work. And that's why I feel High Speed 2 should happen. Why I feel network rail should be integrated with the actual train operations. Why I feel that Northern should stay in government control with the East Coast Main Line and franchising should be scrapped. Now, what else can we talk about? Covered the main two subjects I wanted to cover. Maybe we should talk about what we're actually doing here and how I've sped and you've watched me do it, and only slight speeding, it must be said. My points, if you care about those things, in top right hand corner. I've been getting the odd 15 point increase instead of 30 because I've slightly eased over that. But one thing you will see is how much I'm having to rely on just squeezing those brakes. They see for the speeding fence just there. So they have done pretty well in terms of physics, I think. Yes, you can, if you yank on the anchors, still stop these trains on a metaphorical dime. But yeah, that ekes me a little bit. But you know, that's improvements that they can make the brakes work more realistically. But you do get a feeling of inertia, of mass with this. And I want to say more so than you originally did. I don't know if that's quite true. I mean, it's been so long that since I played and I can't quite remember. So it, you know, it's hard to say. I may be looking a bit with rose-tinted spectacles here when I say that. But, you know, for my entertainment value, I'd say that, yeah, they're doing pretty well with it. Which is why I hope that Train Sim World continues. Personally, I think start moving staff over. Call it a day on Train Sim. Yes, it's very good. Yes, it's still generating money. But to be honest, I still think it would anyway. There's such a wealth of DLC that isn't going to disappear overnight. People aren't going to stop playing that. And there's people who are still going to buy the DLC if they're still using that game, to be honest. You don't need to release any more. Because I refuse to believe that there's more than a handful of people out there who have paid for the entire suite of DLC that's available for Train Sim. So yeah, if staff numbers are an issue and throwing more people behind Train Sim World would help, then I think that's what you've got to do. If this is the future of Train Simming, after this amount of time, realistically, I think you should be doing that anyway. I know of very few people, very few companies in the world that would keep developing, probably the wrong word, but I want to say inferior product when they have a better product out there. I mean, could you imagine the Honda with the Civic? They bring out a brand new Civic and then go, oh, but we're going to keep on developing the old one. We're going to keep on selling the old shape with the older technology. For that matter, electric cars are taking over. A lot of manufacturers are jumping on board. I wouldn't necessarily expect many companies to be out there going, oh, we're going to develop an all new petrol or diesel engine. I mean, they may refine them slightly because electric technology isn't going to take over overnight. I believe we've got 15 years until brand new petrol cars are banned from being sold here in the UK. 15 years, that's not very long. And I wouldn't expect very many manufacturers to wait those 15 years. Unless there's major markets out there that they can still develop for. But we're talking about massive companies here anyway. So maybe that analogy doesn't really work for Dovetail. But I do feel that if this really is the future, if they can solve the problem of the editor and whatnot, drop Train Sim now. It's had its day. Let's focus on this. Let's get this up to scratch. Let's fix some of the bugs that are out there. Some of the problems that are holding sales back on this. Anyway, see, jumped ahead again. We are actually coming up to the end of our run here. As I say, I've cut this down from about 2 hours to an hour. I do apologise, this video is a bit long for some of you. I've got there's some good points to talk about and didn't want to cut this too short. To be honest, I could have edited it right down and just gone, oh look, here's this place, here's this place. But I wanted to give some semblance of, for those of you that are used to the shorter runs with Trenton what you actually got with Heavy Haul. As I say, this is about half the run. And yeah, it's brilliant. But here we come. Old Pennsylvania Railroad type signal there, look. These circles. Just coming in. See, we'll do 45 along here, but just coasting in. There's no sense in kind of rushing up to the end. With blast on the horn, so anyone around, relief crew or whatever, knows we're coming in. We're gonna pull up nicely to this stop. Hopefully I can get it just right. The red signal just ahead of us. Squeeze on the initial reduction. Oh, just a little too early. Then nudge forward. And there we go. Objective complete. That is the end of the run. And that, guys, is going to be the end of the video. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed watching this. If you have, please hit the thumbs up. Share this video out. Let me know if you agree or disagree with my comments in this video. I'm sure some of you will be saying, oh, he's a blithering idiot. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Well, educate me down in the comments. None of this, you're wrong, because that doesn't help anyone. So let me know what you think. Alright, as I say, that's going to be it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.